Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor, and I just want to quilt. Today we're talking to Raymond Houston, and his stuff is super geometric. He talks about symmetry. He's also got these weird Celtic knots. I think I'm saying that right. His stuff is mind-blowing. It's amazing. So we talked to him about his quilting life and his love of design. It's really fun. It's awesome.
Are you recording?
Yes. Are you okay with it being recorded?
No, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with it being recorded, and then we'll also sort of the process is that we're going to record it. I'm going to put it into, add the music, and then I send it to you. You review it. If there's anything you don't want included, we take it out, and then we post it.
Cool.
Does that work? Cool. Okay. We'll go for like a half an hour. That's kind of our goal. People are asking for short ones and longer ones, so we're doing, since we already have recorded a whole bunch of long ones, I'm now doing short ones, so I don't know, it's all very confusing. So about a half hour, we're going to start with a question that we always ask, and then we can kind of go from there. Is there anything in particular that you want me to get to touch upon, or there's particular topics you want to chat about?
Not necessarily. I'm pretty open.
Okay.
My latest thing is a book I'm working on, but that can be. I think that may have been part of the bio I sent you.
Yeah, so. Right. That's right. All right, cool. Hold on just a second. You have a web page too. What's your web page? Let me get it up one more time.
Nacho Grandma's Quilts.
Yes, of course. How could I forget that?
It looks Mexican. It sounds black. It's an equal opportunity.
We're gonna have to ask how you got there, because that's a great title. Because you can't. It's not boring. Okay. There we go. Okay, cool. So hold on, just one more second. I got to do one more thing. Let's just test the levels. Can you just say hi for me real quick?
Okay.
Perfect. And if for some reason the audio gets weird on my end, I'll interrupt you. We'll pause. We'll try it again. And then if it's still weird, we'll deal with it. So if I interrupt you, it's not out of rudeness. It's just the audio's gotten weird because we're on through an internet connection.
All right. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, you're perfect. You're coming in great.
All right.
Can you hear me? You can hear me too?
Yeah. There's a bit of an echo, but you're sitting in a room and you're talking to the room.
I am.
This microphone is kind of directed, so I hope I'm not getting too much echo. So.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound echoey on my end. Is that better? Is that echo gone?
Good.
I turned the levels down on mine, so maybe that'll help.
We'll see.
Okay. All right, cool.
I'm very excited about this. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited too. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. All right, we're preserving these recordings, so the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is tell me your name, even though I know who you are, and where you are right now.
My name is Raymond K. Houston. I live in St. Louis, Missouri.
Cool. And we're going to talk to you about your quilting life, but the first question we have is, what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
I actually don't have any. I'm largely self-taught.
Interesting.
So I thought I had a memory of my father making a quilt, and years later I asked him about it. He goes, "No, I don't think so." So I kind of made that up in my head. But
that's interesting.
No, I had no real memory of anyone doing a lot of sewing or quilting.
And so how'd you come to quilting? What drew you to quilting?
I took it up on a dare. One of my classmates in high school, her mother sewed, and she was, "Oh, my mother made this. My mother made this." I'm like, "Oh, anybody could sew." She goes, "I'd like to see you do it." So I went to the local library and read everything I could. Well, at that time, this is early 70s. I graduated in 1973. So this might be
And what did you see when you went to the library in 1973? Because I'm really curious of this origin point. This is bicentennial. What was there? Like, what did you see? Was there very much on quilting? Was there tons? What was the atmosphere like?
I was just learning how to sew.
Oh, and just sewing.
At that time, there was no sewing for men's clothing. So I was basically reading everything about sewing women's clothing and adapting it for men's clothing.
Interesting.
So my first project was a velvet buccaneer shirt that I had taken a couple of my mother's velvet gowns, took a razor blade to them, and flattened them out, bought a pattern. No, I had my mother's permission to.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. And,
it sounded a little dangerous there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And the sewing machine my mother had was fitful, so I actually hand-stitched this velvet buccaneer shirt. It was cool, and I wore it to school. I go, I made this. Well, of course, the classmate shut up and never said another thing about. But the outfits her mother made. But I'm the oldest of 7 children, 5 boys, 2 girls, and I had no shortage of models. So we would go, shopping. They would pick fabrics. I would pick patterns to fit them, and sew. Now, years later, I guess it was 1976, I got into quilting because 1976 was America's bicentennial. And I didn't think of quilting necessarily as patriotic as much as Americana. So once again, back to the library to read up as much as I could on quilting. Of course, this is pre-internet. There was no internet and
so what did you find there? There's somebody just donated to me quilters newsletters going back to 1974 to the present. So I'm looking at these early ones, and it's interesting to see. They're talking about it's just a different era. So what do you find in 1976 when you're looking to quilt?
There wasn't a lot. There wasn't much. There were several. I came across several books and some magazines, but nowhere near the books or magazines we have nowadays.
And no rotary cutter, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. And templates. Yeah. So there's a whole bunch in these magazines. They're talking about templates and metal templates. You could buy metal templates. And
at that time I was using paper
templates and hand sewing, and that there's kind of you can machine quilt, but it's not going to be as precise as hand quilting. Kind of just machine quilting isn't standard at that point still, right?
My first quilt I started, I machine pieced it.
Yeah.
And of course, with me not knowing anything about quilting, I picked a pattern that had set-in seams, which are not the easiest thing to do. But I got better. I had a lot of practice.
Yeah.
But I hand quilted this first quilt, and it took me 4 years.
Wow.
Because I'm young.
You got stuff to do.
I have other things to do. I'm not going to sit and quilt all day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it took too long. It just took way too long. And after that, I decided, I think I'm going to quilt by machine. I think I found a book, Harriet Hargrave, on machine quilting. And after that, I machine quilted ever since beyond that. Just because it was quicker, the stitches were more durable. I mean, stuff I machine quilt, I throw it in the washer, throw it in the dryer, throw it on the bed. So
that's great. That's great. So, tell me about your life, like your quilting life as it developed. So it's 1976. You're quilting kind of Americana stuff. Do you continue?
And I was copying. I copied a lot of quilts that I was finding in other books and magazines, maybe 2 or 3 quilts, and I considered that my apprenticeship.
Yeah,
because that was how I learned the basic construction of a quilt. What went into it.
Yeah,
but I also realized, well, I'm copying these patterns out of this magazine, but how many other people are reading this magazine and copying this pattern? And does the world really need 55,000 more log cabin quilts?
Right.
So So I
Right.
wanted, how do you design a quilt? So I went to look again back to the library looking for books on design, and the books I found were limited. They would have like a set of components, like a half square triangles and quarter square triangles and squares, and they would just say these are units that quilters have a name for. I mean, they're names.
Right.
They said, so arrange these in a pleasing manner. No, with no real clue or indication of what is pleasing. I mean, what I
Yeah.
think is pleasing, So it wasn't, and the fact that they all use the same components, the half square triangle, the
Right.
quarter square triangle,
Right.
all of them looked the same.
All of them
No
look the
matter
same.
how you
That's right.
arrange them, they all have the same pieces, just in different arrangements, but they all had a sameness to them. And I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So about 1994, I started reading about symmetry. And I go,
Yeah.
aha,
Tell us about that. So
this
that's
was
really important to your story, right? Symmetry. Tell us a little bit more
yeah,
about that.
it's the underlying structure of patterns, all patterns. And I learned that there's like crystallographers and mathematicians and scientists who had developed a system for cataloging and categorizing shapes and patterns and the like. And they came up with a list of 17 planar patterns, planar meaning on the surface of a plane. I was like, oh, cool, 17 of them. So I made a little chart to learn what these positions of, because basically it would take a unit and then either like rotate it or mirror it and create a pattern from generated from a single unit. And so I made a little chart to show what these different arrangements looked like, which kind of made their own little blocks. I go, oh, this is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I designed a block to play with these different arrangements. And it was a lot of fun. So I actually taught this at Quilt University as a method of generating original patchwork patterns. And
Tell us a little bit about what Quilt University is, because you mentioned, I see that in your bio. Tell us what that is.
Well,
exactly.
it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
It was, I think, one of the first online schools for quilting, and there were instructors who had different techniques and styles and things that we're teaching. I happen to have the distinct the distinction of being the first male instructor as well as the first African American instructor at Quilt
Interesting.
University.
And what year was that was a first?
This would have been 85.
Ah, interesting. Well, that's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, no. It would have been a little later than that.
Yeah.
Maybe 94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it was fun. It was, and so the little patch I designed,
Uh-huh.
I got to playing with it, and there were the patterns that were recognized by the crystallographers. These are the regular patterns, but I noticed that their descriptions were limited. They were based on mathematics, and I was more visual than not. So where the little units would either be rotated right side up or upside down, but never sideways. And so I decided, well, what happens if I turn these sideways? Granted, there's no mathematical, logic behind it according to the way they were looking at it, but I just turned things sideways, and it made a whole new set of patterns. And I was like, oh, so I kind of bent the rules, learned the rules, and then I bent the rules, and then eventually I broke the rules. And where
like
the little patch, I would take 4 of them and make a 4-patch block, and I could look at it as 2 pairs, either 2 pairs on top of each other, beside each other, or diagonally, or like alternating, like a checkerboard, which was great. it explained a lot of the